What's up, guys? Hey, so I talked to Matt Hammer. I didn't know Matt Hammer. I looked him up. He's raced Southwick. He's kind of a local, great guy. He's got his own stuff going on media-wise. He raced Southwick and he was disqualified, or his fast lap was taken, and he would have been in the national. He ended up getting bumped out, just like Benji. And man, he had some interesting thoughts. He thinks the AMA might be targeting riders in that B practice to make sure that there's room for the A riders because the track slows down so much. And there's some stuff about FMF pipes. Did they piss off the AMA? Anyway, I get into all that and more, but I want to thank my sponsors, Coach Rob, the Coach Rob podcast. Go check that out. Epic Garage Designs, Ride Strapped, and also Precision Transport. But without further ado, let's get into this.
You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
So Matt Hammer, fresh off of Southwick. So you hit me up on Instagram. You got some stuff to say. Shall we, before we get into that, let's let people know who you are. I did some little bit of research on you. You're a firefighter?
Yes. Full-time professional firefighter in the city of Yonkers, 2 miles north of New York City.
Dang, that's pretty cool. A New York City firefighter, essentially.
Yeah. No, it's cool. So that's my full-time job and career. And when I'm not in the firehouse, I'm pursuing ministry. I'm a lead pastor of a ministry that God called me to start. So that's like my passion, what I love to do. And then racing dirt bikes. I love doing that and just being out there racing. And I also do some music and poetry as well and put that out there.
Oh yeah, and the motivational stuff is badass. Like if people haven't heard of you yet, they will, because you are well on your way, my friend.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, Cooksy. I've been a fan of the channel. I've been watching you for a long time. So I really appreciate the platform and speaking honesty and truth, and especially supporting the privateers like myself.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into it. So you race what, one national a year, you teach schools. Tell me about Southwick. How did it go? And just, yeah, what happened? It was crazy, guys. I saw the results where Benji something got the fast time, and then a bunch of you guys got disqualified. So break that down for me.
Yeah. So Benji Robinson got the fastest time in 250B, qualifier number 1. And then I was number 10 in that group of 250B qualifying. I believe his time was a 2:05, which would have been the fastest qualifier of the 250 class if that remained and standard. And mine was a 2:10.117. But that was like I said, the times in the 250B qualifying. 250B is very important because we were the first people on the track. So for Southwick, that's a great win for privateers and for all the locals because the track's the smoothest. So you really have to go out there and lay down a fast lap quick because that track deteriorates pretty quickly.
So you went out there, laid down a time, and then your second time wasn't as good. Did you only get one lap in, or what happened there?
Yeah, I only got one good lap in. It was tough. I got caught I tried to go out first, but it was a little tricky because they started us off the grid behind the gate. This was the first time the AMA official said they were going to do that, which was just out of nowhere. We rolled down. They're like, all right, we're starting you behind the gate. Last year, they started us in a row, usually in front of a gate. So apparently you had to show up there early, which I did. So I still had a pretty good position, but they let out one at a time. So you had to lay down a fast lap very quickly. I laid down my fast lap, I think, in like a lap or two because I had a clear track and you just have to put it down when it's really clean. But I did catch up to some people. There was people crashing. The medic flag, I think, came out once. My buddy Hunter Stempel, who qualified last year, went down. I think he was in that qualifier. So you know how it is when you got a bunch of guys together. You got to lay down that time quick in case you get caught up in something like that.
Did they have like a 5-minute check the track out, or is that the first time you actually hit the track?
So now what they're doing is we get one lap and then it's green flag and then you immediately go and have to lay down your fast lap. That's how they're doing it now. It wasn't always like that. Usually it was like 5 minutes and then they let you go, but they changed that over the past couple of years.
It's funny. They had it like it is now. Then they changed it for safety and now they've gone back. That's weird because I actually tried to qualify for Glen Helen, I think 07. I made it a half a lap and broke my foot because I was doing that same thing, trying to get a lap time in before it gets torn up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you said the broken foot thing too, because I actually came off a broken foot before I even raced this event. I didn't even know if I was gonna race it. Like the whole, like the whole story. This, like I said, this whole thing goes back actually pretty far. Besides, even losing my fast lap, this goes even being denied to race, being denied into media day, showing up as an alternate. There's a lot of things behind the
Okay,
scenes too. I
let's
want to tell
let's
you.
start let's start from the beginning. So you decide to race Southwick, and you've raced it
Mhm.
before and made it, and so
I
you're
made it in
trying.
3 times, yeah. And last year I finished 29th in the second moto of 450. So I was an alternate. I finished like seventh in the LCQ, and then they put me in the second moto, and I got 29th.
Nice. So you're trying to get in this year. So how does that
Mhm.
whole break down that whole process for me? When do you send it in? Is there a deadline? Is it first come first serve? How does that work?
Yeah, this is where I want to kind of like go through it because there's so many pieces here, and this is something that privateers are struggling with right now. And I think it needs to be brought up to the media. There needs to be new guidelines behind it. So I'll start from the top with this story. So I did like I was telling you, I didn't know if I was going to race Southwick since I was coming off a broken foot, and it gave me about like a month to prepare. And I literally got off the couch because I broke my foot shooting a Christian music video, and yeah, yeah. So I broke my foot and laid up, didn't ride for like 6 months, and then like just from winter time here. And then anyway, a month prior, I'm like, hey, I think I want to try to race. So I submit all my paperwork, and I submitted my entry to race Southwick over a month prior to the event. So I submitted race entry along with a media day entry, and now it's pretty difficult. Like for media day, that's like the old new word for press day now. So I submitted for that, and it's pretty difficult. Like you have to put together, all right, like your Instagram following, your YouTube following. You have to show if you know any publications. So I put together like this whole, all these statistics, about why it would be like a good story to cover and why I should potentially be a media day about having a firefighter career, about pastoral leadership, about artistic pursuits and media experience, passion for motocross, along with having a collective following over 175,000 on all platforms. So anyway, along with knowing publications, and I got denied entry for the media, like press day, 4 days prior to the event, just an email like, hey, we denied your request. And I was like, all right, that is what it is. And I was hoping, my race entry wasn't going to get denied because they don't tell you if your race entry is going to get denied either. And I got my race entry denied prior to this event 4 days, Chris. 4 days. Like, what if I was traveling from California? What if I was traveling overseas? Like I already made the commitment by, working extra for people, trying to swap off my schedule with other firefighters. I used a personal day because both days I was supposed to work that Friday night and Saturday night. So and with Southwick being so far, there's no way I can get into the firehouse. So what I did was I wrote an appeal, and I wrote an appeal to Dan Reinhart, who was running the entry list and like had the whole provisional rider entry list. And I wrote an appeal. I submitted documentation with this appeal. Like I showed 3 previous years of qualifying, like qualifying 3 times at Southwick, and certificates of merit. I raced there 2 weeks prior to the national in an AMA sanctioned local race, and I finished ahead of multiple riders who qualified last year, along with other riders who didn't qualify who were on the provisional entry list, and submitted that and the classes, and showing that I should be eligible to race because of this as well, and being a local, it's my favorite track. I love Southwick. And I also had some recommendations from Doug Henry, who I'm good friends with, like AMA, former AMA national champion. And I know one of the announcers there, Randy Simpson. I'm very involved with Milford Riders Club. He's the president of Milford Riders Club there. So I had, credible resources and wrote this whole appeal together. It took me a long time. I submitted it to Dan, and I called him. He didn't pick up. I called him the next day, didn't pick up. I called again. I finally got a hold of them, and I was like, "Hey, my name's Matt Hammer. I just wanted to introduce myself, and also just mention if you got a chance to look at my email regarding my appeal for Southwick." And he was like, "Oh yeah, I glanced at it," and I was like, "Okay, well, did you look at it? Did you see anything on there?" He's like, "Oh, well, I just kind of glanced at it. There's nothing I can do here." And I'm like, all right, well, let me just give a little bit of background. Like this is a local event for me. I have recommendations from, you know, an AMA, former AMA champion and an announcer there, president of a motorcycle club here. And like I said, the results to prove it, why, they should maybe considering taking a look. Like I asked him too. I was like, isn't this list provisional? It says on the site it's provisional. And he's like, well, there's nothing we can do. I'm like, there's really nothing you can do. Like I already used a personal day for work. I already got firefighters who I had to work for, and they worked for me to cover me for this event. I already spent thousands of dollars in entry fees, in parts, in diesel fuel, and trying to just get things set up for the preparation to get to one of these events. And he's like, yeah, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. And me
So
having experience, this isn't like my first time, Chris, going for a national. So what I did was I asked him, like, okay, well, then what alternate am I? And he didn't expect me to say that, right? Like then he said, "Oh, you're alternate number 3," but he didn't want to tell me I was even an alternate to the event. And I said, "Okay, well, I'm going to go to this event in faith then, and I'm going to trust God that He'll get me into the event." And he replied back to me. He's like, "Hey, I can't promise that you'll get in, but good luck," and then hung up. So,
So let me ask you this. So
mhm.
did he give you a specifics on, is it, I understand all the guys who've scored points this year are they get priority, right? And then once it gets to people who haven't raced this season yet, is there a determining factor, or are they just picking this randomly?
Yeah, so I actually brought that up to him. I'm happy that you reminded me of this, Chris. So I asked him, I was like, hey, I just want to ask about how the entry works. Like how does everyone get selected to enter the event? And he told me, quote, like word for word, he said, first it goes off of teams, like points, teams, and then um, it goes off of riders who should have qualified or who have been like going to events, and then it goes by timestamp. So he said it goes by teams, like teams get the priority, then points in this series, and then they also want international riders there. And then they said if you already went to multiple other rounds, and then lastly by timestamp. And I was like, okay, well, I replied back to him. I was like, well, shouldn't it go by qualifications and starts? Meaning, like I get the teams, like obviously Deegan, the Star guys, the Monster guys, the Honda guys, all them should be in. Guys with previous points. I get they want to bring international riders into the championship, but he actually said it didn't go off of previous qualifications, and I was like, there are riders that qualified last year that aren't on the entry list for this year, and isn't it not fair that they qualified last year, but someone submitted earlier than them and they're getting into the event where they have never qualified and potentially are way off the pace? And he said, like, yeah, I mean that's something we should look into. It shouldn't be just off of a timestamp after the teams and after the points and after the international riders. And I was like, well, that's something you guys should definitely look into soon because there's a lot of people who should be in this event that are not here. And he's like, yeah, well, there's nothing I can do about it right now or anymore. So,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
and the fact that you don't know and you just have to randomly send in, and I saw you sent these, you race one race a year, right? Is that usually?
One or two like local ones, maybe three. Like back in the day, I do like 3 or 4, but right now it's just tough with my schedule and everything. So I just try to hit the local ones, like Southwick and maybe Unadilla. Like that's what I did last year.
But I mean, you spent $500 to get your pro license, and
Yep.
then was it 275 on entry fees?
Hmm.
And then for every pit person, how many do you have to pay? How much do you have to pay to have those guys in?
A lot. I mean, 70 a piece plus the service fee. So I have to look at I have to look at my statement for that, and that goes up pretty quick. So I probably spent just in the passes alone, it went up another $700.
Jeez. And so if you make the motos, how much do you get back?
So last year I got back in 450, $750.
So
Just like,
less than what you paid to race.
yeah, less than what I paid to race.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're losing money. You're losing money going to these events. Like the purse is very off. That's why it's like all based off of sponsors, and yeah, we know that, and you know that.
Okay, I didn't mean to sidetrack you. So okay, so you're talking about it. He said
Oh yeah,
there should
I
be
like that you brought that up
qualifications.
though, because that's important. That's
Yeah,
important. Riders need to be paid more for sure. So they can't even get to the next event. It's very,
yeah, and I've hit that at nauseum. Like and I don't think, and this is the argument I've had with the series is like, it's not like you need to give them a set amount. Give them a percent of the take. Don't just say 70 grand split up. Like
mm,
it doesn't make any sense because if you give them percent, then if nobody buys tickets, then you don't have to pay out. and
Yep.
nobody's hurting. It should be a percent, but that's a different story for a different day. So
Yeah.
you're back to
Uh,
you're trying to figure out how to get in.
Oh yeah, so like I said, he wouldn't let me in. I hang up the phone with him, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm just gonna show up. I already got off of work. I already used the personal day. I already have people working for me. I already spent thousands of dollars, and that's also for my bike to be rebuilt, right? Like my bike to be ready. You know how it is, suspension, motor, parts. Like it just adds up really quick. So I'm like, I'm going no matter what. If they say no, they say no, but I have to see this through because I already invested all the time and money.
Real
Um,
real quick, if you don't get in, do you get your entry back?
Um, you should get your entry back. He did send me in the email like if you don't get in, you can't get your entry back.
Can you
So
get your license back if that was the only race you were planning?
I don't think you can get your license back.
Okay, I was just
I
curious.
wouldn't yeah, I wouldn't quote I'm not going to quote myself or quote that, but I don't think so.
I wouldn't think so either, but I was just curious. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So, so then the next thing is, all right, I'm like getting ready in my truck. I loaded everything up, and you got to be there a certain time because they have privateer parking, and then after that, you got to go to will call, get your passes, and everything else, like we were talking about. And before I even get there, Chris, like on the way, my truck has a malfunction, and it gets stuck in four-wheel drive in my driveway. So I can't even get out of my driveway. I'm already delayed. And I'm like calling people I know, and trying to fix it. And it's like it's a newer truck, so it has like electronic switch in it. So it's not like an easy manual one or something you could override. And we had to like look up a lot of forums trying to figure it out on my phone. And thankfully my dad disconnected the battery. We reset the computer on it and we're able to get it back into two-wheel drive, get out of my driveway. We're already delayed. We're pulling in here a little late and we show up like 12:45, 1. And while we're on the track too, I want to mention this. My videographer called me. He's like, "Hey, are you there yet?" Because he was going to document the whole weekend for me. I'm like, "No, I got delayed with my truck." And he's like, "Oh, well, did you get into the event yet?" I was curious because he knew everything that was going on.
And
And I'm like,
that was
"No,
Friday, right?
Friday. Yeah,
Okay.
this is Friday. This is Friday, early afternoon as we're heading to the track there." And my friend's like, "Wow, I'm surprised you didn't get in with your appeal with all your documents." My friend, who also is another privateer, pro rider, he's like, he sent in his appeal and put together the documentation, and it was granted, and he was accepted into the event. And I was like, so another guy did the same thing and got accepted, but mine wasn't accepted, and Dan said he couldn't do anything. So I was just like, wasn't happy about that. But it's I guess it could be politics.
Well, that's it. There's
So
there's no set way. They get to just pick and choose. So yeah, that's pretty hokey.
yeah, yeah. So after that, I show up there, get all my passes, and when I was at Will Call, I was like, all right, this is my first time showing up as an alternate. Is there anything I should know? Like, and they're like, well, first you got to get your passes, and then show up at Tech, and then they'll let you know there. So first I got to pay for everything before I even get in.
Of
Pay
course.
for Yeah, pay for everything, go in, park, immediately like get my bike out to get to Tech like early because I want to like show like, hey, I'm eager to be here. I want to get in. So I show up at Tech at 1:30 with my bike, and they said to come back at 3 p.m. and we will let you know then if you'll get your spot filled as an alternate. And I was like, all right. So I go back to my rig. I'm just sitting there, with my dad, and we were like, I had some friends there as well who were helping me with just everything else. And once I was like, all right, it's getting close to 3, I went back up there early, and I was sitting up there, and I was like the first alternate up there, and a couple of my friends who I know were also alternates were sitting there right behind me, and we were talking to one of the AMA officials. Like I was like, so any update or anything? Like, oh, wait till 3 p.m. Wait till 3 p.m. It's 3 p.m. now. I'm like, any update? And they're like, well, we're right now there's 7 spots, but there's more teams that 7 spots open, but there's more teams that are showing up, so you got to wait longer. Which, in the past they said that this is something that should have been handled at 3. So I see a bike roll up, I see another bike roll up, I see another bike roll up. So the spots are just going 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm like, all right, like I'm like hoping they're gonna put me through. And they they look at me like, what number alternate are you? I'm like, I was 3. And one of my friends behind me, Sal Colangelo, he was like, oh, I'm number 1 alternate. And I was like, bro, when did you submit to like get into the event? And he's like, oh, I just submitted like a week and a half ago. I'm like, you just submitted your race entry a week and a half ago, less than 2 weeks. He's like, yeah. I'm like, I submitted it a month ago. Why wouldn't I be an alternate ahead of you? He's like, I don't know. It's really weird how that works. He's a good, like I said, nothing against him. It's not that. It's just the system about how they're doing it. I don't
Yeah,
understand that.
it blows that timestamp thing out the window.
Yeah, so it essentially blows the timestamp thing out the window. So thankfully there were still three spots open, but they wouldn't let us through. We're all sitting there and they wouldn't let us through. And they're actually going in and out of the AMA rig, like back and forth. And they're calling people. They're on the phone, like trying to contact these riders to see if they're showing up or not. And apparently, one guy was injured and then the other two weren't able to make it. So we all got through, but they made us wait almost an hour. And we finally got through, got my transponder, everything. I was like stoked. I was like, yes, I finally get to race. Like, I went in faith and I'm happy that I got in, like just to be able to compete. And I was like, okay, is there anything I should know as I was going through tech inspection? And they're just, looking at the bike, checking it out. They put a sticker on and they're like, all right, you're in B practice, 250B practice, your first practice. So be there, be ready at 8 a.m. I'm like, okay, is there anything else I should know or anything else like that? And they're like, nope, hand me the schedule. That was it. Did not
So
start the motorcycle. They didn't check the motorcycle. They didn't like really, like I said, they're not weighing any bikes. They're not doing anything really crazy or even tell me about sound. The most important thing, they didn't even tell me about sound test or anything like that.
were they testing guys earlier? Because I know when I went through tech, they did. Because I remember because I failed it and I had to go put an insert in. Um, they didn't.
Yes.
Did they test all the people earlier and then the sound people left?
So I don't believe they were. I could be wrong, but I don't think they did because in Supercross they test you before. But I was talking to TJ Albright about this, and he was telling me like, yeah, in Supercross they test you the day before, but then in the Nationals they're testing like on the day of, is what he was telling me.
Yeah, because I mean that doing it before. I mean, honestly, guys were putting rags in the airbox, loosening the sub. Like there was all sorts of ways to get through it.
Yeah, and then changing the ignition map or doing things to try to like change the motor. So that was all they told me. So I was like, all right. Um, and then after that, I got ready to go up for the B practice. I showed up early, like when riders meeting was done, I was like rolling down there immediately. Like I had my mechanic go down. I'm like, we got to go down there early to wait because I wanted to get out there as soon as possible, being the first group of guys. Um, so anyway, they line us up and they stagger start us off the grid. And they, as they stagger start us off the grid, we go off one, 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 one. Like we keep going off, except, there's some guys that lined up like behind each other, which was kind of strange. I thought they should have filled almost the whole grid if possible, instead of, having people staggered start behind each other who want to start first. But that kind of defeats the purpose of it, but it is what it is.
Yeah,
So,
racers will always try and push it and cheat, and I used to do that stuff. Like if I showed up late, but I can still sneak in, I'm going to.
so that was really it. There was actually one rider that was out there that too that got caught up in B practice, and he qualified a previous weekend. They're like, well, you shouldn't be in B. We made a mistake. You should be in A. So if you stay in this B qualifier, you're going to remain in this B qualifiers the rest of the season if you accept that. And he's like, all right, well, I'm just going to stay that way. So that like happened on the gate too. So he accepted that because he knew the track was going to be better in our qualifier than the A one. But that's a tough pill to swallow too. Like I would rather be an A and sacrifice Southwick. But hey, that was his decision. But anyway, went out for the qualifier, got up front immediately, made some quick passes, and had a nice gap. Laid down a fast lap time as soon as I could. While no one was down, there's no red flags, no cross flags. I got my fast lap time of a 2:10.117. And at the end of the session in the B 250B qualifier number one, at the end, AMA official with a flag like points to me and waves me off to the side, and I was like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Go to sound tests." I was like, "Sound tests?" I didn't even know this was a thing. And they pull me over to the side, and I see one guy in front of me at sound test, and they're like fully revving his bike, and he like points to the kid, and the kid goes back, and he just like his face just drops. The kid before me, he starts crying. I was like, "This isn't good. Like something's going on here." I didn't really know what. So then I line up my bike next, and Doug Henry sees what's going on, and he kind of goes over to the sound test guy to see if he could, say anything about what's happening. But the sound test guy is just kind of like ignoring him, not saying anything. The AMA official, and just focused on me and the bike. Takes my bike, lines it up in the line, has the microphone next to it, revs it, and he tells me I'm 3 decibels over sound limit. I guess the sound limit was 115. I was 118. I'm like, all right, well, what does that mean? And he's like, it means that you lose your fast lap time. I was like, my heart just like sank. I did not expect that at all because I didn't even know about this. I was not informed at tech. They didn't tell me anything about these rules, nothing. And like in the fire department, we're briefed with memos, with new orders about training, about equipment, about rules we should be aware of, anything. But the AMA didn't tell me any new rules or anything prior to this.
Did
And
they test everybody, or was it
um,
random?
so they only tested 4 guys. And in that B qualifier, they tested the #1 qualifier, Benji Robinson, with a 205, like we talked about, would have been the fastest 250
Jeez.
qualifier of the day.
I feel bad for him. That's horrible.
Yeah, him and me, which were the only guys they brought in who were in the top 10 in B group. So I, in my opinion, we were targeted, and the AMA went for him, and they went for me because we were in the top 36, and the other two were not in the top 36 with their time. I did not know the top other two or the other two riders personally, but they weren't there with their time when I looked it up.
So
Additionally, I want to mention something too with this, Chris. I think it's even deeper than just the sound because the only bikes that they pulled over were FMF exhausts. It was the strangest thing. They didn't pull over any other exhaust system, only guys with FMF exhaust. And that's what the AMA official told me. He's like, yeah, we pulled over all these guys with FMF exhausts. And it was just odd. I was like, and I'm sponsored by FMF. So I'm running FMF exhaust and it's a fresh pipe. The pipe is packed 3 hours ago. Like not even. My
hold
dad
on.
just did it.
He told you they were looking for FMF pipes.
Yeah, he said that all FMF pipes failed that we brought over because all the 4 guys that they pulled over in that 2DB qualifier 1 were FMF pipes and they all failed.
And then
And
and you said you were targeted. Why would they target you? What was the reasoning behind that?
So I believe I was targeted because when my dad was there watching the time qualifier, on that screen where they show you all the lap times, he saw 2 AMA officials pointing at my name and pointing at Benji's name and being like kind of quiet and like pointing at the names and then like radioing over to try to like say something. And I just felt targeted because we were in the top 10 and, we were locals, but I'm not, like I said, I don't do these races all the time. And I don't think Benji does either. We're both relatively local people. I don't know him too well, but I'm just speaking saying from where he was. So I believe we were targeted to make more spots for potential other riders. And like, hey, they won't say anything about it because, we all know that the 250B qualifier was the best track. And usually it's not like that throughout the rest of the tracks in the season. Usually the B group gets the track when it's pretty, it's pretty rough after the A group usually, but Southwick, it's actually favors privateers, which is a nice thing that they do that.
Well, and do you know if at any of the previous rounds that they did sound testing and took away lap times? I should have looked at that, but I haven't, and I'll do it before I post this thing.
I'm not sure about it. I think they have, but I do know that they were more strict on it than this round than other rounds. Even saw like a tweet about Steve Mathis saying sound test. It's really hammering down on it. Like weird. Like he commented something like that on Twitter. For some reason, they're really pushing it on this round. And like I said, in my opinion, I felt targeted for that.
So and I mean, you don't know this, but you think they were kind of trying to get some of the locals out so that they don't have any of their regulars or top guys not qualify.
Correct.
Okay.
In my opinion, that's what I think.
Hey, it's your opinion. And I mean, you were there and you felt targeted. Dude, I'm beyond baffled that they only went after FMF pipes.
Only
That
FMF
is bad.
Yeah. And this goes even further too. This is the crazy part. Like this is the part that really boggles my mind too, Chris. So I did some more research and I found some more documentation that like even from my post the other day that I wanted to share. So I did the research and I checked the 250A qualifier and I noticed that in the 250A qualifier, not one bike failed sound test. None of them. Because I don't know, all factory bikes, every bike in that 250A qualifier wasn't over sound. That sounds a little fishy to me. In the first qualifier, the only penalties that I saw were from jumping on the red cross, but not from any rider in sound test in the first qualifier. Okay. So
do you know if they sound tested those guys?
that's what I'm saying. I don't believe that I don't know if they did because not one of them failed. Not one of them. And this is where it gets interesting too. I forgot to mention the guy at the AMA official told me you got to put an insert in. So I just forgot to mention this before. And I was like, all right, well, I don't have an insert. He's like, well, go get one at the AMA rig. I get one at the AMA rig. They give me the insert with no rings. Essentially, if I put that in, it would have blew out of my exhaust. It's like having someone go to the dealership to buy a car with the lug nuts loose. Like it's going to come off. So they didn't even supply me the right parts. If I didn't know what I was doing or have the rings with me, that piece wouldn't have stayed in. So anyway, I put the ring in. The second qualifier comes up and they didn't even pull me off. They said they were going to, and they didn't in the second 250B qualifier. And my lap time was substantially slower because the track gets so much rougher. It's just known at Southwick. And then the next 250A qualifier, number 2, I checked the notes and they sound tested Jordan Smith and they sound tested Daxton Bennick of Monster Energy Star Racing. And those are the only 2 bikes that failed sound test and lost a fast lap time in the second session. So this is the crazy part, like the biggest thing that blew my mind. So you're telling me that their bike got louder in 1 hour by sitting on their bike stand. Their bike got louder, right? Like they
Oh,
didn't.
yeah. I see where you're going here. You're saying,
No,
okay, the second session time doesn't matter, so let's make it look like we're testing everybody and let's get them in the second session.
yes, yes. So they lost their fast lap time in the second session, but not the number 1 session. So their number 1 session stood, which was very fast, which is pretty actually. I think Jordan Smith was a 207, Daxton Beck was a 209, and they kept those times, but not the second one. The second one, which essentially didn't matter. It's almost like there was no penalty of a fast lap, but at all. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, it's a political. Yes, I see exactly what you're saying. Let's make it look like we're cracking down on those guys too, but it's not going to really affect them.
Exactly. So it makes it look like it, but it didn't. And it's just odd to me. In 1 hour, the bike sat there. I mean, what changed?
Nothing.
It's just nothing. The bike sat there, and essentially their bike should be quieter in the second moto because you're on the gas less because the track gets rougher. You're going slower. So I was just that's what really made me upset about this. So Benji Robinson and I lost that qualifying time. And the crazy part was if those times stood that they didn't penalize me for and him for, I would have had a faster lap time than Mark Phineas, a Club MX rider who was leading High Point Moto 2 last round. I would have had a faster lap time than Evan Ferry and a faster lap time than Talon Hawkins if they didn't penalize me.
Yeah.
So
poor Benji was first. I mean,
he
he
was
was faster
first.
than everybody.
He was faster than everyone. Yeah. And they put Tom Gaia in there who was from France, and he had that lap time. But what just boggled my mind, like I said, was they only protested Star in the second one, but not the first one. And their first time stood just to make it appear that way, like they're testing everyone, where it was, I believe, political and a setup just to show that, to try to make some spots for the A guys.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I don't have proof of that, but I mean, what you're saying is logical. So then you go from there, you go to what, the LCQ?
Yeah, so I had to go to the LCQ. They took my second best time, which was the 2:14.408, and Benji Robinson's second best time as well was a 2:14.461. And so I was pushed back to 56th overall, and he was pushed back to 58th overall because, like I told you, there was a lot of flags out, and I think the Red Cross flag came out at once, so it was just slower at one point. So we had bad gate picks for the LCQ, and went on the LCQ, got the best start I could, and a guy crashed right in front of me in the start. I tangled with him. I picked up my bike and dead last, and then I caught up to 16th in the LCQ in four laps and went through 18 tear-offs, like just was blowing through all my tear-offs, and that was the end of my day.
Oh man, that sucks. I feel really bad for you that it went down that way. I mean, it sounds like you're making the best of it, but I appreciate you bringing this to light, man. I mean, it does suck when you see this political stuff because the AMA claims to be a separate organization. They're essentially an arm. AMA Pro Racing is an arm of MX Sports that I mean, for a while there, when you emailed the AMA, they had MX Sports emails. I don't know if they've fixed that or not, but it's the same organization, and the promoter wants the best riders in the field. So yes, they want the international, but to to do dirty stuff like that, that's rough. And just to know to go after FMF pipes, that is not cool. And
Yeah.
I'm sure FMF's not going to be pleased about that either.
No, no, and also one thing I forgot to mention too, the only pipes that were lost sound were only FMF pipes because Star Racing uses FMF pipes, but they have custom FMF pipes that privateers can't buy anyway. They're custom exhausts. And then in 250B qualifier number two, I forgot to mention the one that I didn't get sound tested in that they said they were going to check me. There's only one other guy that they pulled off in sound test and that failed, and he had FMF pipe. So all the riders that failed were FMF riders. It's just it's just weird. I don't know why all FMF. And I was parked next to Vinny Lahovi, a privateer, qualifies for a lot of rounds for at 437 on a Honda, and they've been getting into it. They said with the AIM officials with sound tests as well. I guess this has been a problem going on at some other rounds. My memory's refreshing on this. So they bought a brand new FMF pipe out of the box. He said, put it on their 450. Dad was telling me, and it still didn't pass sound test. A brand new FMF pipe. So I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but it's it's just strange to me, Chris.
So when they tested, they only grabbed dudes with FMF pipes or only failed FMF dudes?
I couldn't see all that, like I said, because I was on track. But they said the only riders that failed were FMF, and I don't know if other riders were grabbed besides FMF. I know where you're going with this. Did
Yeah,
they
I was
even
just
grab
curious if
riders
they were
that-
just straight targeting them.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but because like I said, I was out there, so I couldn't see
Yeah.
all of it. But I know all the ones that failed were FMF.
Do you know that I heard something about Deegan after the race? They were going to sound test him. The bike blew
Hmm.
up. Do you know anything about that?
So I heard a little bit about it. My friend who was helping me with my team told me he was saying that after the race they sound tested Jordan Smith and he failed again, from the second qualifier to then the moto, and then they docked him 3 points. And then Deegan's bike, when they brought Deegan's bike up, his bike blew up on sound tests. Like it just blew up. And there's conspiracies, people talking about like, why did his bike blow up at sound tests? And then he didn't get penalized. I don't know anything about that. That's just what I heard though. But I know that his bike did blow up at sound test. I knew that Jordan Smith got docked 3 points. Like that's for sure.
And I'll be honest with you, it just seems like a bad idea to take a bike that's been out there on that sand track and rev it really hard for sound check right after.
Yeah,
And,
it's
Deegan's bike was smoking in that second moto. So I don't know. Got anything else you want to share?
I think it was just like I said, strange that they were going after those riders and all those people are failing sound. And then last year, they weren't even doing it for outdoors. Like this is a new thing. Like why implement it? I heard from a rider that they said they were implementing it because they want to slow the bikes down. They said that they want to target for 130 decibels or under a certain amount of decibels in 2030. I forgot the number, but it's less than 130. I apologize. But in 2030, they want to target a certain amount of decibels to slow the bikes down. And that's why they're really pursuing sound tests. But you and I know, Chris, you can never slow the bikes down. They're always going to find a way around it to keep them faster.
That's a weak excuse. I don't think a quieter pipe sometimes actually can actually improve the performance. I don't see that. That doesn't make sense to me. And if you're going to do that, you got to try. Why don't we just get rid of paddle tires if you really want to slow it down?
Yeah, I mean that's what I heard from one of the riders. I didn't, like I said, I wasn't informed on the rule or anything about it, but that's just what I heard. So it's just surprising to me. Like I said, last year wasn't a thing. This year was a thing. Wasn't informed. Wasn't told. Nothing. I wasn't even supposed to be at the event. They didn't even want me there. And then, like I said, they take the time. So in my opinion, stole the time.
Oh man, that sucks, man. I'm sorry that it went that way for you. You did qualify in. They ripped you off. What are your plans from here?
I don't know. I'm signed up for Unit. I'm not accepted yet into Unadilla. I I submitted for Unadilla, but we'll see what happens there. I'm not sure if I'm gonna go yet. I have to just see with work and everything else. It was tough enough just to get off for Southwick, so I have to see if I could do anything for Unadilla. But I'm gonna focus on my ministry and teach. I really want to focus on that and help other riders, teach riders, and actually combine something, do something with ministry and motocross, and actually start doing that and bringing new people into the sport who maybe wouldn't know about it and maybe wouldn't know about Christianity and have a different approach with it. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on when I'm not at work or uh, anything else.
That's awesome. And just so you know, when this interview comes out, that timestamp on Unadilla might look a little different. They might push you backwards.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, I accepted that. I might. It's either going to go one or two ways. They're going to deny me going forward, or they're going to accept me because they don't want more press. But I'm like, all right, well, I'll just hop on another podcast. I'll just talk to someone else about it. Like if they want to do that, I'm not afraid if they're going to, push me out because I'm not trying to get a ride. I'm not in that position anymore. Like, oh, I'm a Loretta's kid coming up. I need to get a ride. I need to submit to them. I don't have to do that. I'm just doing this for fun and because I wanted to. And this is just, I'm passionate about the sport. So yeah, if they do that, they do that. But it'll be interesting. I'll just hop on another show. So
Dude, you are a savage. I appreciate that attitude. I love that attitude. And I think people are also going to get on board with you. I hope you get into Unadilla, and I mean, you got the right attitudes. And hey, where can people find where do you do your ministries? Where can they find you?
yeah, so the best way to find anything right now is just on my social media platforms. Just if you type in Matt Hammer, it's Matt Hammer underscore on Instagram, on TikTok, and then YouTube is youtube.com/Matt Hammer underscore. If you search Matt Hammer, you'll find it, or hammerchurch.com. I got a video about the vision of what this is all about and how I plan to do this church. I want it to be like a different type of church as well. Like I want it to reach people who wouldn't be reached, kind of like a nitro circus, but share Christianity and travel and speak and bring dirt bikes in, bring cool music in, and share positive messages about the word and really have people from a different perspective see God. So that's what I'm working on right now with this ministry.
Dude, that is awesome. And, I can't let you go without asking about Doug Henry. He was one of my all-time favorite riders.
Awesome
I
guy,
actually raced
amazing guy.
supermoto with him, and I remember
Yeah.
he went around me, and I was like, I don't even belong on the track with him. He's so fast. And when he got hurt, it was devastating. How's he doing?
Mm. He's doing good. He's in good spirits. He's always smiling. He's like one of the nicest guys in the world. Like I thank him so much because he was actually someone that was behind me all along with this. Like he tried reaching out to MX Sports for me and trying to put in a word for me. He tried talking to the sound test guy like if possible, but he was there. He was checking in with me on the pits, like, hey, how you feeling out there? Any lines? Great guy, and you know, one of the best riders, a legend out of New England for sure.
Oh, dude, he was an absolute savage on everything he did, and it was crazy watching him ride supermoto because he didn't have to do that. That was after retirement. He came back and he just pushed. I mean, it was crazy. With the way he would two-wheel drift that thing on the pavement was
He
just
flew.
something
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, he was so fast. So
Yeah.
fast. Crazy.
All right. Anything else you want to get off your chest?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the story of Southwick, everything I can cover there. So I just want to share it and I wanted to bring light to this because like I said, there are other privateers, there's other friends of mine that didn't get in. And I believe, like I said, I want privateers to be aware of this sound test so they don't get targeted, so they're aware of it, they don't lose their fast times. Also, I would like to see a change in, the guidelines of how people get entered into these events. I don't believe it's fair. And there's friends of mine who are privateers who tried submitted and they've been getting denied for multiple events over and over and over again. So they have to really have a more screened process of this, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what, you can only have 80 guys, and they just if it's going to come down to random picks, they got to give some sort of a guideline on what. Like, okay, is it a first come first serve? Is it by credentials? They need to set that and let you guys know. And I'm okay with it. It's life's not fair, but at the same
Mm,
time, you got to at least let you guys know.
yeah. And the thing is too, and Chris, it's interesting because I right now the rider cap is at 90, but I've seen them go over it actually before because I was denied at an event in Unadilla. I think this was in 2022. I was denied to race, and I noticed that I was talking to a few people from MX Sports and they made an exception for that round and brought in like 92 or 93 riders for the cap. So it's like they can go up a little bit if they want to. And there was another rider in 450 as an alternate when I was waiting in Sound Tech and they denied him in 450 and he had to go home and he showed up as an alternate. So like if they wanted to make one more spot, like just let the guy go. Like why are you going to fight him so hard on the 90 cap if he showed up as an alternate and made the investment and the money and time to get there?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see their point on that because if you've been there, then everyone's going to go, oh, there's 90, but I'll just show up. They'll let me in. I kind of see that. But at the same time, my question is, so now you've paid for the pit passes for all your family and you're hoping to get in. If you stay and watch the race, are you still out for that money?
That's a good question. I didn't try going back to will call, but that would be a tough. I don't know. It'd be tough to get your money back. Maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't.
I don't think they
You don't know.
would, but that's just
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they're saying, "Oh, you're here, you can watch the race." So there you go, enjoy. But it is what it is. No worries, man. Dude, I am stoked that you came on. Like I said, I'm open. Any of the other privateers, when you guys, if you guys ever need a platform, my platform is your guys' platform. Um, all I ask is you be authentic. And dude, you're a bad dude. I want to have you on more often. Anytime
I'd
you
love
want to come
to.
on, anything you want to talk about, even if we just want to break down races. Let us know what's going on with you, your ministry, any big announcements. Keep me informed, Matt. You're a good dude.
Thanks, Chris. No, I'd love to, man. I've been, I watch a lot of your breakdowns and a lot of the prediction shows and all that. So anytime I love the sport, and it would be an honor to be on sometime because like I said, I'm very passionate. I play, pulp, not, I play, not, well, I did do Pulp MX Fantasy, but I did RM Fantasy more. And at one point last year, I was leading the series for a little bit in RM Fantasy at MX. They put me on the show briefly. They're good guys over there.
Yeah, the
So
guys at RM Fantasy are cool. So,
yeah.
honestly, most of the guys over at Pulp, Travis, Marks, and all the guys that run the Pulp MX one, they're pretty cool. Only guy I don't like over there, Steve. But oh well.
Yeah, yeah, no, everyone has mixed opinions, and I've heard things as well.
Yeah,
One thing actually I want to mention that kind of caught my attention. I noticed that Daniel Blair recently on his overreaction show. I don't know if you saw it, but he said that because Tom Guyon got the fastest time of the 250 qualifier, like overall, he was saying that he wishes that the 250A went out first and they switched it essentially. I saw him say that. I was kind of surprised because I thought, Daniel was a privateer at one point. Like I know he had the support at Geico Honda at one point, but I was just a little surprised he said that. I thought he'd have maybe a little bit more like, support for the privateers in that aspect and wanting the factory guys to get that first practice out in Southwick as well.
yeah, that's interesting that Daniel said that because yeah, he no, he truly is a guy that I mean, he was a privateer, he gets it, but he also wants the best guys in the show. And I think for him, he's looking at it as like a production. It's
Mm,
better to have Hayden Deegan up there for the interview. But I disagree. I think it's better to have a guy like Benji or Tom or you up there for the fast qualifier. Because I mean, some tracks it's a disadvantage. It's too watered, it's too ripped. It's
yeah.
just luck of the draw. So I don't know why you would change it just because it's better. I mean,
Mm.
if the B practice is worse at some and better at some, it's just that's the way it is.
Yeah, no, exactly, exactly. It was just surprising for me to hear that, like I said from Daniel because like I said, I like his announcing, I like like his story and everything else. But seeing that just surprised me. It's like they already have all the advantages. They already have the best bikes. They already have parts we can't buy. They already have spec tires. They already have everything that money we couldn't buy if we had the money. So it's like at least give us the practice, like one practice, out of the track. So I was a little
Oh,
surprised, but maybe it was just
and
a bad choice there. Who knows?
maybe they have the AMA targeting guys to eliminate their times to let them in. They have all these advantages.
Yeah. 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 So again, thank you so much, Chris, for the time and having me on. And we'll definitely talk because I think it'd be fun to hop in another time for a breakdown show or anything like that.
Yeah, for sure, brother. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.